Hey, hello, welcome everybody to today's workshop. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. It's been quite a busy week and a wonderful week in all things, but overall things are great. It's Sunday, getting ready to start another week in the beginning of this year. And if you didn't see the question at the beginning here as we were getting started, I'd love to hear what your number one financial goal is for 2021. Hopefully it has something to do with retirement planning or financial planning of some sort, because that's what you're here for. That's what we're going to be talking about. And every Sunday, we are going to bring you a live workshop, generally on Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to talk about something having to do with either retirement or financial planning. So if you're new here, I want to welcome you. My name is Jason Hamilton. I'm a certified financial planner and the founder of Keep It Simple Financial Planning and the admin of this page. If you are able to, from your current device, we'd appreciate if you shared this workshop, because I'm pretty sure there's other people that might have very similar questions to yourself. And ideally, we can get this information to as many people as possible. So if you haven't yet, just click the share button. Even if you're watching this later, we love if you can share and just get this out to the community. I'm really bad at asking about that, so I'm going to make sure I try to ask on every single one of our workshops, because sharing is caring, right? The more people who can get good information, the better. So welcome. I want to say thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we are going to have a very good workshop and a very interesting and useful workshop for you. That's the goal. I always want to make these useful. I want to make them actionable, and I want to make them to the point where you can actually have a takeaway that you're able to use each time. So if you didn't catch us on the last one, last week we talked about the cost of planning for long-term care. Okay, so if you haven't thought about long-term care, if you have no idea about what long-term care might cost, then you definitely want to go back to last week's workshop and just take a look at that. I'm getting a comment from Deandra that I got bad service. So if everyone can hear me or see me okay, please let me know in the comments, because I don't want to have bad service. I want to make sure everything's coming through nice and clear so that you can hear everything. So I'm going to jump in until I hear some other comments. And today we are going to talk about, we're going to talk about 3 common IRA questions, okay? So we're going to talk about 3 common IRA questions that I get all the time. I see posted quite all the time, and really want to make sure that these things are clear for you. And I think they're going to be actionable to a lot of people, especially a lot of people here. Patty mentioned that she's going to continue to do Roth conversions as her goal for the year. We're going to talk a little bit about Roth conversions and potentially spending some of that money, Patty. So hopefully you find this useful. And I'm guessing that you're going to want to convert and then potentially spend some of that tax-free money later. So you're in the right place. We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to get you all squared away for your questions around that. So let's just jump right in. Before we do, I do need to put up my disclosure page here, that nothing here today should be seen as individualized tax, investment, or financial advice. This is meant to be educational, okay? So please see a qualified advisor, a certified public accountant of some sort before you implement anything, but ideally you have some good information here and some things to implement. Okay, so this is one I get quite a bit. So what this question is really asking is, let's say that you have one spouse working and the other spouse is either not working or maybe working very part-time, okay? So I've actually seen people just not really understand that they can contribute to either a traditional IRA, which would be a pre-tax contribution, or a Roth IRA, which would be an after-tax contribution on behalf of their spouse, okay? So if you are 50 or below 50 years old, you can put up to $6,000 in a traditional or Roth IRA for the primary worker, and then you can put an additional up to $6,000 a year for the non-working spouse, or just if a spouse that doesn't quite earn that much, and you can add an additional $1,000 on top of that. So the contribution rules are exactly the same for the non-working spouse as they are for the working spouse. The key is you must have earned income to make a contribution. Okay, so this can be self-employment income, it can be W-2 income, but the safe harbor definition of earned income is W-2 income, and you can contribute the amount of your earned income or the contribution limit, whichever is less. Okay, so for example, if you your whole household only made $5,000 for the year, that's the most you can contribute. That would be your absolute upper limit. But if you made $50,000 for the year, well, then you would make enough to contribute for both spouses, either $12,000 if you are below 50 or $14,000 if you are 50 or older. So any taxpayer with earned income can make an IRA contribution with the following exception. If your income exceeds certain limits, you will not be able to make a Roth IRA contribution, okay? If you have income above certain limits, which I'm going to cover with you in just a moment, you have to do something what's called a backdoor Roth IRA, so you can still do that, but you cannot put a direct contribution in a Roth IRA. And then the income limits generally increase each year for inflation. So let's talk a little bit about what the contribution limits are, okay? So if you would like to contribute to an IRA above and beyond, if you have a workplace plan, generally that's a good place to start if you're going to get the match, like a 401k or a 403b. But beyond that, you may want to contribute extra, or you may not have a workplace plan, okay? So this is where if you do not have a 401k at work, an IRA is a great place to contribute and consider contributing money, because you're going to get this money either contributed and get a tax deduction today by going into a traditional IRA, or you can put it into a Roth IRA and then have your contribution. You'll pay tax today, but then that money will grow forever tax-free. As it says here, the total contribution limit is $6,000. Unless you are age 50 plus, then you can contribute an extra $1,000. So the year you turn 50, you can start contributing an extra $1,000 to a traditional or Roth IRA. Roth IRA eligibility. Okay, this is something very important you want to pay attention to here if you're thinking about contributing to a Roth IRA, is that if your modified adjusted gross income, that's what MAGI stands for. If you're single, the phase-out range starts at $125,000 and then finishes at $140,000. So if you're single and make less than $120,000, you're good. You can contribute either $6,000 if you're below 50 years old or $7,000 if you're above 50 with no problems at all. If your income is somewhere between $125,000 and $140,000, then you're going to have a phase out that's going to start, okay? So there is a calculation for that. It's not that difficult, but you might want to look that up online or get some help from either a advisor or an accountant. But the amount you could contribute is going to go down depending on how much you make above that $125,000 mark up until $140,000. Once you get to $140,000, you can no longer directly contribute to a Roth IRA. As I mentioned before, you can do what's called a backdoor IRA, where you essentially contribute to a traditional IRA. It's a non-deductible IRA, and then you convert that over to a Roth IRA. If what I said to you sounds like another language, please, again, speak with your advisor, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. But you want to make sure that you're following these rules. It's very important because it's going to be a really ugly penalty if you don't. Okay, for married filing jointly, that's what MFJ stands for. The MAGI phase-out is between $198,000 and $208,000. So if you're married and you file joint taxes and you make less than $198,000, you can contribute to a Roth IRA, regardless if you have a workplace plan, regardless if you have any 401k or anything at work. And so you will be in the clear if you make less than that, okay? Once you get above $198,000 for a married filing jointly filers, you have up to $208,000 before that phase-out kicks in. So somewhere in the middle there, you can directly contribute somewhere in the middle. And again, if you are above $208,000, you have to look into what I mentioned there, that backdoor Roth IRA. The IRS has recently released guidance about the backdoor Roth IRA, which basically said it's okay. It's not in direct black and white, but before it was kind of a thing where it sounded like it was okay, didn't think there'd be a problem. Everybody did it. No one got in trouble, so they kept doing it. But the IRS, I think, has given their official blessing to that, okay? This next section is important if you are covered by a work plan, okay? So what does that mean? Being covered by a work plan means you have a 401k, a 403b, TSP, one of those type of plans that you're contributing to at work. So if you're contributing to get your match, for example, at work, or you're contributing, the primary worker is working to contribute. If you have a 401k plan at work or a 403b of some sort, then you're going to be subject to phase-out limits here, okay? So the phase-out limits, what those mean is the reason why you want to deduct to a traditional IRA generally is so that you can deduct it off your taxes and get a tax deduction today. And then the money can grow tax deferred, and then you won't be taxed on it until you take it out later. If you're a single filer, you can have an MAGI between below $66,000 and still contribute to a traditional IRA and get and deduct the whole thing, no problem. If you're between $66,000 and $76,000, there's limited deductibility there, and that's a scale that's going to scale down as you get closer to $76,000. And then once you're above $76,000, you cannot deduct the traditional IRA contribution at that point. That is for single filers. For married filers, you have up to from 105,000 to 125,000 your phase out. So if you are below that, then you have no problems. You can contribute to a traditional IRA. For the married filing jointly, okay, if only one spouse is covered, then the other spouse can still contribute to a traditional IRA and deduct the whole thing, and the limits are higher from 198 to 208. Okay, but generally, you know, it's a good idea to consider if you can qualify to have a little bit of pre-tax money, for example, going in your 401k, and then maybe do a Roth IRA on the side. It's a great way to set yourself up for tax diversification. That's a wonderful place to be in retirement. We have different options. So hopefully that is clear. If it's not clear, please leave me a comment and we'll discuss that. All right. This is another question I get quite a bit. Can you convert your IRA or employer plan, which would be a 401k, 403b, or SEP IRA, to a Roth IRA? The simple answer is yes. All funds in traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, and employer plans, such as 401ks, are eligible to be converted to Roth IRAs. Funds in a simple IRA can also be converted after the employee has participated in a simple plan for 2 years. Okay, have to be there for 2 years. A conversion before that date will be subject to a 25% penalty on the amount withdrawn, and the funds are not eligible for transfer to any other type of retirement account except another simple. Okay, so simple IRAs are good. They're low cost, easy to administer plans. But if you're not in there for 2 years, you could have a penalty trying to get that money out of there and doing a conversion here. To do a conversion, though, out of employer plans, you must be eligible to take a distribution from the plan. Okay, so what that means generally is that you have to be 59 and a half and be able to do what's called a in-service distribution. That's generally what that means in simple terms. All right. And our final question for today is, when you take money out of your Roth IRA, will you have to pay taxes or penalties on what you withdraw? Okay, so this is where it gets a little tricky, because there's a lot of people that want to do a conversion from either an IRA or the workplace plan to a Roth IRA, but there are some guidelines you have to follow to make sure that you don't have problems when it comes to the earnings on that. So let's talk about that a little bit. This is what we'll talk a little bit about what you may know as the 5-year rule. Okay. So a couple key things. You can take basis out of your Roth IRA at any time. Okay, so any of your contributions to a Roth IRA, you can take it at any time. Your basis is also amounts that you have converted to a Roth IRA, or certain amounts that you've rolled over from an employer Roth account. Okay, so if your basis is essentially all the money you've put in before any earnings have been achieved in that account. So you can basically take out your basis at any time. Distributions of your basis will not be taxed, as you paid tax on those amounts when they went into the Roth. A distribution from your Roth is considered to be first come from contributions, then convert amounts, and then earnings. Okay, lastly, earnings. So when you're looking at the order, and if you're looking at taking money out of your Roth IRA, and let's say you wanted to take some out and you had converted some money last year, for example. Well, if you already had money in that account, the first amount of money that's going to come out is your contributions, then it will be the converted, and then it will be from the earnings. So it's not a huge risk at the end of the day if you need to take money out of a Roth IRA, as long as you've been contributing and the account's been open for at least 5 years. But you cannot take tax-free distributions of earnings until 5 years after you have established your first Roth IRA and are over the age of 59 and a half, are dead, disabled, or are taking out the funds under the first-time homebuyer exception. So in addition, if you're under the age 59 and a half, the 10% early penalty distribution will apply. So that is a big thing. If you're not 59 and a half yet, this could be an issue if you're trying to get out some earnings. There are some exceptions, as we mentioned here, like the first-time homebuyer purchase. So if you're somebody that does not have a Roth IRA and you're getting somewhere close to retirement and you're thinking about doing a conversion, I would highly recommend you just get a Roth IRA opened of some sort. And even if you throw in $100, for example, that's going to start the clock on your Roth IRA, the 5-year period that we're talking about here. So if you don't have one, you might want to just get one open, get $100 in there, start the clock, and then figure out what you need to do next when it comes to either contributing or converting. And that's where I recommend you get with an advisor on that to help you with that situation. Okay. You could also be subject to the 10% early distribution penalty on the distribution of converted amounts if the conversion was done less than 5 years ago and you are under the age 59 and a half at the time of withdrawal. So if you're 59 and a half, that basically eliminates this, and you can still withdraw the convergence amount and before 5 years. So for a lot of you, again, look close to retirement, not as big a deal. The penalty will be owed on the amount of the converted dollars withdrawn, not on the total converted amounts, unless you withdraw the total converted amount, okay? So again, this stuff is a little bit tricky. Generally, if you're going to look at Roth conversions, the idea is that you don't want to touch that money for a while. You want to let that money grow tax-free and then take it out later once it's had a chance to get some interest on those original deposits. But you may need to take it out earlier for whatever reason, so make sure you're following this proper process, okay? All right. Well, that's all we had today. I wanted to do a quick, easy training, a quick, easy workshop, 3 questions that would do my best to help you out with 3 questions that I get all the time. If you have questions about really anything when it comes to retirement planning, we'd love to speak with you. We do offer services around retirement planning and investment management, so we'd love to help you out with that. You can go to keepitsimplefinancial.com/talk. And I am not seeing any questions in the chat here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat now. I'll say speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. But if you'd like to speak to us, one of our team members or myself, go to keepitsimplefinancial.com/talk, and we'd be happy to help you out. So other than that, folks, again, quick, easy training. I thank you so much for tuning in today. Every Sunday, 2 p.m., I would love to see you here. We're going to continue to expand our knowledge. I really want to do even a better job this year than we did last year of bringing you simplified, really simple, easy to follow knowledge when it comes to planning your retirement. But when it comes time to put it all together, I do recommend you get some help, and we're here to help you when that's the right time, okay? Have a wonderful afternoon. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week, all right? Bye-bye now.